You've logged on to Virtual Memory, the game that challenges your Bible knowledge. Today's contestants, out of nowhere, youth forgot, and now, here's the host with the perfect face for radio, it's Jamie Alexander!
On August 29th, 2009, after months of preparation, I was on a game show called Virtual Memory that aired on TBN and JCTV. And this was like a fun Bible trivia game show, and there was no money involved. It was just for points and prizes and such. So we arrived at the studio and we were pretty excited. And let me tell you real quick about how much of a friendly, amicable environment it was. Before the game show started, I quick used the restroom, and on the way I was seeing my opponents coming by, and they came by, and after a few feet that we passed each other, one of them called over and said something like, "Good luck, Matthew," and I'm like, "Thanks, and you too." So there was really no competition whatsoever. It was, again, just a friendly game show, Christian game show. So while we were being briefed about everything, a lady told us, like, wait till you hear all of the question before you buzz in. And that's what she said. And somewhere in the middle of the show, there's a question that we were preparing for. So we read a Bible passage that they told us that the questions were going to be based on. And I knew a lot of the trivia behind that Bible passage. And one of them was about the 12-year-old Jesus being in Jerusalem for the Feast of the Passover. So in chronological order, it was a 3-day journey to Jerusalem. And it took 1 day until the parents of Jesus, Mary and Joseph, realized that Jesus was missing. And they reversed it. So when the host was asking the question, I thought it was going to be chronological. I buzzed in before he finished the question. I said 3 days. And he said, "Oh, good try, Matthew, but I'm looking for something a bit more specific." And he reversed the chronology. Understandably so. And the very next question was, how long was the journey to Jerusalem? And the game show looked at me when he was starting to ask how long, and he could hear the buzzer, and he was looking toward me, but then he swung around because the buzzer came from the other side, and my opponent, I believe the one that said "Good luck, Matthew," at the beginning said 3. So here's the clip to that.
A visit to Dad's house?
All right, let's go to Dad's house. Okay, so all these questions are about Jesus taking his own detour while traveling with his family. Take it from Luke 2, 41 through 51. Number 3. How long did Joseph marry? Yes. Oh, Matthew.
3 days.
Ooh, good try, Matthew. I'm looking for something a little more specific. Guys, tell your team captain on this one. How long did Joseph, Mary, and their group travel away from Jerusalem before they realized Jesus was not with them?
1 day.
1 day. Very good. So close, so close. All right, Jesus' parents went back to Jerusalem to search for him. How long did they look before finding Jesus? Oh, Zach.
3
days.
And as you can see, we were all laughing about it, no hard feelings or anything, even though I lose sleep over it. I lose sleep over it because they specifically said that at the beginning. Do not buzz in too early. Wait for each question to be fully asked before you buzz in. And this is another thing that I lose sleep over, and I mentioned this in my book and in a previous YouTube video from 2019 where I actually showed excerpts from the game show, and somebody from the audience called out James K. Polk. And I gave the biography of the 11th president. The only thing is I was a century off, and instead of the 1800s, I said the 1900s. So he served from 1945 to 1949. And my grandfather actually told me that afterwards. So I didn't know that I made that gaffe until afterward. And then I'm like, no way. And so in December, when I watched the game show, yep, sure enough, I made a gaffe. So I made a little mistake. Even the dog's barking about that. So, and here's the clip of that for your pleasure.
I'm going to go into Newport Harbor High School.
Nice. What do you like to do?
Well, I do know a lot about the presidents.
Like all the presidents. So I could just say any president's name and you'd be able to tell me. What do you guys? Okay. What? Who?
James K. Polk.
James K. Polk. Go.
James K. Polk was our 11th president. He served from, March 4th. (1945) to March 4th, 1949.
Grover Cleveland.
Well, he was our 22nd and our 24th president.
Oh, I'm just completely blown away. That is amazing, Matthew, that you can do that. That's awesome. So what are you thinking of in terms of career? presidential speeches.
Later, I was showing my neighbor, and he was watching the game show, and they're like, well, everyone knew what you meant. Another thing is on the game shows that the host asked the question, what was Jesus' trade? And it's like, I knew he was a carpenter, but back in the day, it's like trade. I mean, doesn't trade mean occupation? And then I thought, well, what if I'm wrong on television and such? So my opponent got that one. All in all, it was a magnificent memory for being on a game show. Our team came in second place out of 2 teams. Figure that one out. So here's some bonus stories that I don't think were revealed until now, almost 13 years later, is that in the final cut during the lightning round, they actually cut out at least one full round. And I remembered my question, and it was about Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar being the king of what? And I'm like, Babylon? And I'm like, well, what if I'm wrong? And my opponent got it, but that's okay. And if, and only if I remember correctly, one of my opponents in the round that they cut out, he was asked, which of these is not a book of the Bible? And I'm like, I heard that question before. They must be reusing that question. And I knew that the answer that they're going to give is Hezekiah, along with 2 books that are actually in the Bible. Or this is what happened. There were 2 tapings that day, and we were in the audience for the second one. And maybe that was when the host asked that question that they must have recycled, and it's like I knew it and the answer. And I thought, well, what would it be if I heard that question and I was up, and before he said the 3 choices, I buzzed in and said Hezekiah, because Hezekiah isn't the name of the Bible. And then they'd be like, well, how did you know? Very carefully. I've heard this story before. That's how I knew. When we were showing my aunt the DVD and it got to that question, she quickly snapped her fingers at me while keeping a constant gaze at the television screen because she knew that I would know it. I would know that Jesus was a carpenter. And I had to explain trade. I could be sure I knew what that meant, but like, what if I was wrong? And a lot of things going on in my autistic brain at that moment.